A single company is buying the houses you're trying to live in. And they're not just buying them, they're changing what you pay to exist in one. What they're building next is the part no one in finance wants you to see. Welcome to the Money Files. Today, we open the file on Blackstone. You sign the lease, you move in, you unpack your things. It feels completely normal. But here's what most people never think to check. Your landlord might not be a person anymore. It's not a couple who bought a second property. It's not a local guy with a few rentals. It's a machine. A trillion-dollar global investment firm that has been buying homes at a scale no individual buyer on earth can compete with. Over the last decade, Blackstone has been quietly buying America. One house, one building, one neighborhood at a time. And depending on where you stand, that either looks like smart investing or something much more dangerous. This is where people split, so let's go back to where it started. 2008. The housing market collapses. Millions of Americans lose their homes, prices crash to levels nobody thought possible. Entire neighborhoods go dark. Foreclosure signs on every other block. While families are trying to survive the worst financial crisis in a generation, Blackstone goes shopping. They launch a company called Invitation Homes, and they start buying thousands of single-family homes, distressed properties, foreclosures, liquidation sales at prices that made sense for no one else because no one else had that kind of capital. And here's the move that changed everything. They didn't buy to sell. They didn't flip, they didn't develop. They bought to rent indefinitely. Hold the asset, collect the income, never let it go. That one decision didn't just make Blackstone money, it rewired the logic of the American housing market. Because for the first time, institutional capital at this scale had entered the single-family rental space and decided to stay. But the houses were never really the end goal. The system was. What Blackstone and firms like them were actually building was infrastructure. A centralized rental network built on top of scattered single-family homes that previously had no connection to each other at all. Think about what that means. Thousands of individual properties spread across different cities, different neighborhoods, different states, all operating under one system, one balance sheet, one decision-making structure. Pricing, maintenance, fees, lease terms, all of it managed to scale, not by a landlord who lives nearby and picks up the phone, but by software, algorithms, and asset managers measuring yield. And once you build that system and prove it works, you scale it. You expand into new markets, you acquire new platforms, you build entirely new properties designed from the ground up to feed the rental model. Entire neighborhoods where supply, pricing, and availability are no longer shaped by individual decisions, but by portfolio logic. To Blackstone, a home isn't a place to live. It's a cash flow stream that renews every single month. And once you see housing that way, you don't stop. But when one type of player controls that much of the rental supply, pricing stops behaving the way it's supposed to. Regulators start asking questions. In 2025, the Department of Justice filed suit against Blackstone's multifamily rental arm, LivCor, along with several other major landlords. The allegation? That these companies used algorithmic systems to share non-public rent data with each other, effectively coordinating pricing across markets without ever sitting in the same room. This wasn't a fringe complaint. The DOJ laid out a pattern of behavior that they argued amounted to price fixing on a national scale. LivCor settled in 2025. They agreed to change how they collect and use data going forward. But here's what the settlement didn't do. The rents didn't fall. The tenants who'd been paying those prices kept paying because the system that produced those prices was still fundamentally intact. A legal agreement can change behavior at the margins that can't undo years of rent increases that have already become someone's monthly reality. Now zoom into your side of this story. You've been saving, maybe for 2 years, maybe for 5. You've got your pre-approval. You've done the math on what you can afford. You find a house. You make an offer, a real one, a fair one. And you lose. Not to a family who wanted it more than you, not to someone with better credit. To a corporation, All cash, no financing contingency, no inspection contingency. Closed in 7 days. You can't compete with that. No individual buyer can. And every home they take off the purchase market doesn't disappear. It comes back as a rental, which means fewer homes available to buy, more people forced to rent for longer, sometimes permanently. That's the loop. Demand to buy stays high, supply for purchase stays low. Rent demand climbs because people who couldn't buy need somewhere to live, and the same companies that outbid you at purchase are now your only option on the rental side. You're not just losing a bidding war, you're losing access to equity, to ownership, to the foundational financial mechanism that built most of the middle class. Because once they own it, they don't think like landlords. They think like a fund. Every unit is a line item. Every lease renewal is a yield calculation. Rent isn't a number you set and leave alone. It's a variable you optimize continuously across thousands of units in real time across dozens of markets. Take San Diego. After Blackstone acquired thousands of rental units in the metro area, rents in affected neighborhoods spiked sharply, in some cases well beyond what local wage growth could absorb. That's not an accident. That's what the model produces when it runs at scale. And for tenants, this stops being abstract very quickly. It's the renewal letter with a rent increase you weren't expecting. It's the fee that wasn't clearly disclosed in the lease. It's the maintenance request that takes longer than it should on a home that was rented to you with issues still inside it. The complaints stacked up, then the investigations followed. By 2026, federal regulators had secured tens of millions of dollars in settlements returned to renters, real money going back to real people who had been overcharged or misled. But the underlying system that generated those charges, still running. Now zoom out one more time. This isn't really a story about Blackstone specifically. It's a story about a structural transition. A shift from a country where ownership was the goal, where a mortgage meant you were building something, to one where renting is increasingly the only option available to large portions of the population. As more homes get absorbed into institutional portfolios, fewer stay accessible for individual purchase, and as that gap widens, the political pressure builds. In 2026, the federal government moves to impose limits on large-scale institutional home buying. The proposal triggers an immediate market reaction. Stocks in the sector drop. Debate explodes across every financial and political channel. Some call it necessary protection for regular buyers. Some call it government interference in private markets. But here's the thing both sides are actually agreeing on without realizing it. When policy has to step in this aggressively, it means something already broke. And here's what most coverage missed underneath all of that noise. Blackstone didn't slow down. While the debate raged, they kept expanding, acquiring new rental platforms, funding the construction of entirely new communities built from the ground up, designed from day one to never be sold, only rented. They're not reacting to the future of housing. They're building it. Tonight, you'll go home, unlock the door, sit down, exhale. Inside something you don't own, paying every month to a system you never chose and probably couldn't name until right now. And for the first time, you might ask yourself a question you haven't asked before. Am I just renting an apartment? Or am I renting my position inside the economy itself? So tell me, is this the future of housing? Or the moment it broke? If you want the next file on who's quietly reshaping your money, subscribe. Next file drops soon.